Let's see what's happening with the sales today. Any kettles sold today? Da 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 da. Okay, one Black & Decker kettle was sold today in Sydney. All right. Let's see how many TVs were sold. Two TVs were sold, Samsung and Sony. Okay. Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to chat with your own file-based data, literally. We will be building a simple UiPath app that enables you to query your file-based data using natural language. So let's get started. All right, so to build the app, we need to follow a few steps. The first step will be to connect to UiPath GenAI Activities using Integration Service. And following that, we need to configure the context grounding index and load our file which contains our data. And the third step will be to build our automation process using StudioWeb. And finally, we will need to build a chatter app using apps. So let's see how each of those steps can be accomplished. All right, so if we go to UiPath Integration Service and search for GenAI connector, we can find it here. If we click on it and go to the Activities tab, we can see a wide range of activities offered by default by UiPath. For example, you can see a translation activity, another one for summarizing text, and the third one for PI filtering. The one that we will be using today is content generation. So to connect to the UiPath GenAI Activities, all you need to do is to click on that button, and once you are connected, you should be able to see your connector and with the status connected here under U connections, which means that you can use it in your processes and in your apps, as we will see next. So let's have a look at the data that we will be playing with in our video today. What you see here on the screen is an Excel file that contains a few sales records. We are basically focusing here on some electronics that were sold on a specific day at different times in different locations. So you can see, for example, we have a fridge that was from a brand Samsung. One item was sold at the price of $500 in the location Melbourne City, and the date and time was the May 2nd, 2025 at 1 p.m. So we will need to use that data in the next step where we will upload it to a specific location in our Orchestrator in order to query that data using natural language processing eventually in our app. So let's see that in the next step. All right, so if I go to UiPath Orchestrator and select a specific folder where I want to upload my sales data, I can do that by selecting the folder from the left-hand side. I selected the shared folder, for example, and then I went to Storage Buckets tab. And under this tab, if I click on Add Storage Bucket, I can select this option here. And from here, I can create either an Orchestrator storage bucket, or you have the option to create a Microsoft Azure storage bucket or Amazon S3 bucket as well. For this video, will just focus on the Orchestrator bucket. You just give it a name and give it a description. If you want some tags and labels as well, you can do that. I've already created a storage bucket previously, which is this one, tests CG1. If I open that bucket, you can see that I have already uploaded my Excel file with the sales data I've shown you a minute ago. So this step is mandatory because we will need that file in our next step. All right, so next we need to create something called an index. An index is basically a vector database that point to your file or files that you will query from your processes or from your apps, as we will see next. So in order to create an index, we will need to go to the Orchestrator, select the folder where we need to create that index, select the Indexes tab, and then click on Add Index. Here we can give our index a name, a description, and most importantly, we need to define the data source of the index. If we select storage bucket, for example, we can see that we will need to select the folder as well. So I select shared, and then from that folder, we can point to the storage bucket where we've already uploaded our files. So in this case, I'll just select my storage bucket, and from here, you can actually specify the type of the file that you want this index to work on. So as of today, UiPath supports these types of files: PDF, CSV, Excel, Doc, JSON, and text. You can leave it on the default option, which is all, or you can specify a specific type if you want. Another option that you have here for the data sources is a connector. So you can actually build your index based on external data sources. So for example, if we look at the connector types here, we can see that we can get files from Dropbox or from Google Drive or from a Microsoft SharePoint or OneDrive, for example. For this demo, we will just focus on the storage bucket that we have built a few minutes ago. And as you can see here, I have already created an index previously pointing to my storage bucket. A very important point here is whenever you build your index, you need to sync it, because the index by default doesn't connect to the data automatically. So once you build, you will need to sync that to make sure that your data is synced. If you refresh that, the ingestion status shows successful, which means data is ready for querying, which we will see in the next few steps. All right, so now let's switch to UiPath Studio to see how we can build the automation process that will allow us to query our sales data. So as you can see here on the screen, I have a couple of activities added to my process. I have a content generation activity and a set variable activity. Those activities can be added simply by clicking on that plus button here. If you search for set variable value, that's the second activity I've added to my process. And if I search for content generation, you can see that, yeah, this is the activity I need, which is basically a UiPath GenAI activity from the list I've shown you a minute ago in Integration Service. So that's already done. Another thing I wanted to show you is the data manager. So in the data manager, I've created a couple of arguments, an in argument and out argument. The in argument is basically a text variable that will take the question from the end user when they start chatting with the app. As you can see here, this is a sample question that the user might ask: what is the last item that was sold today? So this is just a default text, but when we run the app, this can be any question that the user can post. And the output argument is basically the output that we will get from the GenAI activity that we are using in this process. So that output will be posted on the chat app, as we will see eventually in the demo. Okay, now let's have a look at how each of these activities was configured. So if I click on the content generation in the properties panel, I can see that here we have to specify the GenAI Activities connector as the first step. So that's the GenAI 2 connector that I've created earlier. And then we need to select the specific model that we will use under the hood to process our query. UiPath, as of today, provides these options. So chatgpt models, Gemini, and Claude. For this demo, we will use GPT-4o, the latest version. And In the prompt, which is basically the question the user will be asking in the chatter app, we are using the in-prompt argument that I've just shown you a second ago. And here you have some options. Pi detection can be set to true or false. We are not passing any pi related data, so we leave it on false. And here is the part where we need to configure to point to our sales data. So context grounding here, we can point to the index that we have built earlier. So we can select an existing index, and then we need to select the folder where the index is located. So I select shared, and under that folder, we already know that we have the sales data index. And if I scroll down, there are some more options that you can play with. We just leave that on the default for now. And at the bottom, we can have a look at the output, which is basically the text that will be returned by the model. For that, we need to focus on the top generated text, which is basically what we are using as an output. So I'm passing that to the output argument inside the set variable value activity here, so we can post that response to the chatter app eventually. All right, so now let's switch to UiPath apps and see how we built the chatter app in there. So as you can see here on the screen, we have a few building blocks, main building blocks, let's put it that way, of our chatter app. The main page where we have our main controls is one building block. A second block is the process that we've built in the previous step. And the third part is the variables that we will use inside the application. So quickly, if we have a look at the page, so that's our main page, it has three main components. It has a custom HTML control. That control is where we will hold the entire conversation between the end user and the GenAI or the context grounding agent that's working behind the scenes. And the second control is the text area where the user can post their questions to the app. And the third component here is the submit button that the user will need to click on to submit their questions. The second part here is the process. So if we click here on the plus sign, you will be able to add any processes available in your Orchestrator folders. So I've already added my get sales data process that I've shown you in the previous step, so we can utilize that process inside the app. And finally, we have the variables. We have two main variables that we will need to use inside that app. One, which is basically holding the response that we will get from the GenAI activities that we will call using the get sales data process, and another variable to hold the HTML content, which is basically the main conversation that will happen between the end user and the agent. All right, so now let's have a closer look at a couple of controls that hold most of the work that need to be done for this app to work the way we intend. So if we have a look at the custom HTML control, if we select it here and then go to the General tab and click on the Open the Code Editor, we can see that the HTML control comes with three main categories or three main parts. The first part is the actual HTML that will show eventually on the screen once we launch the app. And for this app, we just need a div control. We give it an ID, which we will need to reference later. And we have a class, CSS class, that can help us to format the text and the colors inside that div, which we will explain next. Then we have the CSS component of the control, which is basically any style that you need to apply to your HTML content. So this text container, for example, is containing a few attributes related to the foreground and background colors, the width, the height, whatever styles you want to apply. So that's basically what we will apply to the main div element here. And also I've added a couple of other styles that will apply to the text that we will inject inside that HTML content. And lastly, we have the JavaScript component of the HTML control. That's basically where you can put any JavaScript functions or code that you want to run while running your app. What I've done here is I added this small function, and as you can see here, what I'm saying is on the change of the variable HTML content, please set the element HTML container, which is my div, to the value of that HTML content variable. So that's the variable we have defined on the app, as we've shown you a minute ago. And also I'm just adding here one liner to scroll the div down to the bottom, always, just to show the last conversation happening between the user and the agent. All right, so now let's have a look at how we configured our submit button. So if we select the button here from the design canvas and go to the events tab, click on edit the rule, we have configured a few steps here. So the first step is we are setting the HTML content variable to a specific value. So what we are saying here is set the HTML content variable value to the text area, basically. So that text area that we where we put our question is basically appended to that HTML content. So we will keep adding content to that variable and eventually show the entire conversation in the HTML control. So that's the first step. The second step is we are showing a loading image on the screen while the context grounding is working behind the scenes. We're just showing a user-friendly icon to inform the user that some work is being done in the background, and once the data is retrieved, this spinner or this icon will disappear, which we will show you next. Now, the important part of the steps is basically calling the process. So this is how we call that get sales data process. So from here we can specify the name of the process basically by clicking here, and automatically whatever process we have configured will appear. So we just selected the get sales data, and here we can select what type of robot will run behind the scenes to perform the actions required inside that process. So I've just selected unattended for now. And for the input variables or the input arguments, if you remember, we configured our process with one input argument and one output argument. So we need to pass to my input argument, which is, again, can be configured from here. We click here, we can see both arguments. So I selected the in prompt. We can pass to it the text that the user will input in the text area. So this is how you pass the input to it. Then let's have a look at the execution target. That's basically the robot that will run this process behind the scenes. And when started, I haven't configured anything. When suspended, nothing. But when completed, what I'm doing here, I'm setting the agent response variable, which is this one, to the output of my process. So again, this can be configured from here, processes, and I just selected the out response. So that's basically how we retrieve the data back from the process. And after that, what I need to do is I need to update my HTML content variable this one, which is basically by writing this simple expression. So I'm appending to the HTML content variable the agent response that I got back from my process. And after that, what I'm doing is I'm hiding my spinner and clearing the question that the user already asked on the app. All right, now the moment of truth has arrived. Let's test our Chatter app. So I'll start testing by asking this simple question. What is the latest item sold today and at what time exactly? All right, so let's submit that question. As you can see here, we got the spinner with the configured word thinking. What we would expect here is to get the latest item sold, which is the iron. So iron at Melbourne at 7:20. So the last item sold today was Philips iron in Melbourne at 7:20, which is a perfect response. All right, let's ask another question. What is the sum of the sales today? All right, so I'll submit that and let's see what we will get. Still thinking. All right, so it came back with this response. The sum of the sales was 3,240. So let's verify that. If I go here and click on the sum, yep, so that's absolutely correct. All right, let's get more creative. So I will ask, show me the items sold at or after, let's say 7 p.m. All right, so I'll submit that. And let's see what the response will be. All right, so the items sold at or after 7 p.m. are the iron. And what else? We have the air conditioner as well. All right, so basically 2 items. Can we verify that? So if we go to the iron, yep, it was sold at 7:20, so that's correct. And if I scroll down here, yeah, we have the air conditioner at 7, and that's pretty much it. So that's another awesome response. All right, now let's ask another question. So let's ask, show me the number of sales under each location. So let's submit that. And let's give it a few seconds to come back with the response. All right, so based on the provided data, the number of sales under each location is Melbourne 4, Sydney 3, Brisbane 3. All right, let's verify that. So Melbourne 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's correct. Sydney 1, 2, 3. Correct. And Brisbane 1, 2, 3. Awesome response. And lastly, we will ask this question based on the sales data. What is the most favorite brand sold? All right, let's submit that question and let's see what kind of response we will get. All right, based on the sales data, Samsung is the most frequently sold brand with 3 items sold. So yeah, we have a fridge sold here and 1 air conditioner and 1 TV. And based on this data, we can say that this response is absolutely correct. And that's all. I hope the content was useful. If you like that video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And see you in the next videos. Thank you.